Sigwili. Hi, my name is Dakota. My spirit name is Galolux, means she gathers. Today I'm going to be talking about the Haudenosaunee creation story. It complements the exhibit you are about to see. So it starts in a place that we call Skyworld. Earth does not exist at this point yet. So in Skyworld, the people didn't know greed or hatred or jealousy or any of those types of negative traits. All they did was work for the highest good of their people and their community. They all had special gifts or talents. And so anyway, we call it midwinter. It's midwinter ceremony going on in the Skyworld. And there is this elderly chief. He's never had a partner, never had children, ever. So they decide to add 3 days to the midwinter ceremony, and it's a dream guessing contest, and whoever guessed the dream would be the chief's wife. So all the unattached women would take part. And this ceremony went on for many years, no such luck, and until this one time, this woman, she decided to participate in the dream guessing contest, and she happened to guess the right dream, and all the villagers were so excited because they didn't think anyone was going to win. And right away she became the wife of the chief. Like right away they planned a wedding, and they didn't stop to ask this woman if she really wanted to marry this chief. She was just kind of excited with the people, just went with it. But after a while, after being married, she realized that she didn't want to be with this chief. She didn't love him. She actually fell in love with another man in the village, a young man, and she became pregnant by this young man. And the chief already knew all this, and that was his gift. He knew everything in the village. So all he wanted was her to come forward and tell him herself what happened. So she did, and the chief and the wife agreed to let the other villagers know what happened. So they told the people, and they're very sad. But even at this time, there was sort of a law that was in place back in these days, and their punishment was they were banned. They were banned from that world. So before she leaves, she goes for a walk. She goes for a walk through the woods, and she's just walking around, and all the seeds from the plants are getting caught on her dress, and she comes across these berries, and it's the berries that are ripe during the late spring, early summer, which is the strawberry. So she's eating these berries before she leaves. And they also made her new clothes, new pouches. They gave her seeds, musical instruments, and they gave her a big feast as well. So she goes to this tree, and that's where they dug the hole. They dug a hole through the ground until it broke through, and all you could see down there was just water and air, like rough seas kind of. And so they begin to lower her down there, and her partner, the one who impregnated her, he was sent down there as well, but he was made into a spirit being, and his gift was he could fly and he could throw fire sticks. So his job was to kind of patrol the earth, I guess. Well, not the water. So he goes down to these birds, these large birds. It's what we know today as geese. And so he asked these geese, "Can you help my lady? She's falling from Sky World." So they agree. They fly up and they form a V, and that was so that they could catch her on their backs, and that's why they still fly that way today. So they fly up under her, they catch her, and they bring her down to the water. And there's already animals in the water, and they're trying to figure out, like, well, where can we put this woman? There's really nowhere to put her. So they gather in a council, and they see a turtle coming, and they thought, we should ask him. So they ask this turtle, "Can we put this woman on your back?" And she's fine with that. And then he says, "Yeah, I would like to do that job. I would be honored to do that." So they put her on the turtle's back, and so everyone goes back to what they're doing, and then they check up on the woman, and they notice she's uncomfortable. Like the shell's really hard and cold, and plus she's pregnant, so she's quite uncomfortable. And so they gather in council again, and they remembered this teaching that they got from their ancestors about this brown stuff that's far down deep into the water. And so they decide that someone's going to make this dive and go get it. And the first volunteer is the beaver. The beaver is, he believes he's the best for the job. He's very strong, he has a strong tail. So he dives in, and he's gone a really long time. And then they notice him coming back up, and he doesn't have any of the brown stuff. And then they ask, well, what happened? And he says, it was dark, I couldn't see the sun anymore, and I was scared of the serpents, so I found my way back up to the surface. So they gather in council again, and this time the otter volunteers. And the otter, he would be a better choice only because he's smaller than the beaver and he swims really fast, almost as fast as a fish. So he takes right off right away. He pierces down into the water and off he goes, and he's gone really long. He's gone twice the amount of time as the beaver was gone. So, and then the animals are waiting around, and they didn't see any sign of him for a long time. And then they see something coming back up, and they get excited. So he resurfaces, and they swim over to him, the animals, and they realize that he drowned. He lost his life, and he didn't have any of the brown stuff. So they put him on the turtle's back. And they thought, the animals, they thought it'd be too dangerous to keep doing this dive because he just lost his life. So the animals, they decide to not do this dive anymore because it's too dangerous. And then a voice at the back of the group, he says, "I want to make this dive." And the leader of the council, he says, "Are you sure you want to make this dive? Did you see what happened to the beaver and the otter? One couldn't make it, and the other lost his life." And the little voice says, "Yes, I still want to make this dive." And the leader says, "Okay, well, we want to know who this brave creature is." So he starts coming to the front of the crowd, and once they realize who it is, they begin to laugh because The animal is a muskrat. He has crooked whiskers and he has a really thin tail, like a pencil. So there's nothing these animals can do to convince the muskrat not to go. So all they do is just send him their best wishes and and so he goes into the water and he dives down, and he's gone really long. He's gone about twice as long as the otter was gone, and a lot of the animals actually gave up hope. But some of them did stick around, and they kept checking, and then finally they did see something coming to the surface, and he resurfaced, but they realized he lost his life as well. So as they were carrying him to put him on the turtle's back where the otter is, they noticed he had stuff in his hands. They were clenched really tight. So they pried open his hands, and there was the brown stuff. And they're really excited, and there's some in his mouth as well. So they grab the brown stuff from him and they give it to the Sky Woman. And she takes this brown stuff and she puts it on the back of the turtle, and she forms like a circle. And she takes out her instrument from Skyworld that the people gave her, and it's called the water drum. And she starts playing the drum, and she starts singing and dancing. She's dancing in like a counterclockwise direction, and she's doing a heel-toe type of dance. The seeds that got caught on her dress, they begin to fall off, and they're growing with the brown stuff and growing with the turtle, because the turtle's growing as well. And these plants that fell, or the plants that grew from the seeds, they didn't grow as tall or as large as plants nowadays do. They're really small, and so that's why they're wild plants. So she just keeps doing this and doing this dance. They say she's done it until the land that we know today is here, and that's why we call it Turtle Island, because the land's on the back of a turtle. So not long after that, she's still carrying, and she's about to give birth, and she gave birth naturally, just fine, and she had a daughter. But this daughter, she grew really fast compared to how we grow today. She grew into a young girl really fast, and all of a sudden she's a young woman. And this young woman, one night she was sleeping, and this man came to visit her in her dream, and his name was Westwind. And he was telling Sky Woman's daughter about how he found out about her, and because he traveled the earth with her father, which is the spirit being who could fly, and he throws fire sticks. And he would brag about his daughter, and so the bringer of water, Westwind, he wanted to see for himself. So when he did see her, he fell in love with her right away, and that's when he introduced himself to her in her dream, and they both agreed to be partners for all time, and that they would have children. So one morning when she wakes up, she notices that she has 2 arrows on her stomach. One is really sharp, and the other is dull and not so good. And the 2 arrows represent the twin she's going to have. And so, and the arrows also indicate the personalities of these twins. So one will be good and the other will be not so good. Even like while she was pregnant with these twins, they gave her a hard time. Like, she had a rough pregnancy. They say that they developed a jealousy of each other even then, because when they were going to be born, the good twin, we're going to call him the holder of the skies, he was being born naturally, and the mischievous one, he got jealous that he was going to be born first. So as he's being born, the mischievous one ripped through the mother's side, and the wounds killed her. So the grandmother, Sky Woman, she hasn't seen human death before, so she's not sure what to do with her daughter. But she remembered back to the otter and the muskrat who lost their lives trying to get the brown stuff for her. And what she did for them was she covered them up with the brown stuff. So that's what she decided to do with her daughter. She covered her up with the soil. And because the mother has such a life-giving force within her right now, from having given birth to her twins, it's emitting in the soil. So the grandmother, Sky Woman, she decides to honor her daughter by giving her something from Sky World, and she uses the seeds that she got from the Sky People, and she puts them over her grave. And the father of the twins, West Wind, he brings water and he puts them over her grave. And her father, the spirit being, he is purifying the air, and the sun brings warmth. So all of that stuff combined, this new life begins to sprout from her body, and it turns out to be corn, beans, and squash that grew over her grave. And just like the twins, the corn, beans, and squash came from her body. So the grandmother told her grandsons, the twins, that they are to refer to those plants as the 3 sisters and their 3 sisters. And the reason those plants are female is because if you replant the seeds, it will grow. Just life-giving like a woman does. And so not long after that, the boys begin to grow up, and they find their gift, and their gift is to create. And because they're twins, they share it equally. So the holder of the skies, he is creating all the good things, like plants. He would create, for example, a rose, and the mischievous one would come along and put a thorn on it. So that's the balance of life. And so the holder of the skies, he is making all of these plants. They're really good for you, no side effects, just pure good plants. And the mischievous one, he wants to do the same thing. So he makes plants that are almost identical to his brother's plants, but the only difference is his are poisonous, and if you don't know how to use them properly, it wouldn't be very good for you. So that's what we are supposed to remember when picking plants, is to know which is which. It's very important to know that. So, because those the twins created both good and bad medicines, so you have to know what you're picking. They also created animals, and there was a time when the animals, they would respond to you. And what I mean by that is, if you call them, they would come over. There was no fear. So, the twins, they took turns hunting every winter. So this year it was the mischievous one's turn, and he got lazy, and he found this cave, and he called all of the animals to him, and like I said, they weren't scared. So they came over, and he told them all to go in this cave. So they did. They listened to him, and he grabbed this huge rock and he put it over the cave, so he locked them in. And he would go back home, and each time he went out, he would come back with whatever animal they needed when he went hunting. And the grandmother and his brother kind of thought it was weird, but at least they had something to eat. So one day, the holder of the skies, he is walking through the forest, and he comes across that cave, and he notices the rock that is covering it, and he thought, that looks intentional, like if someone put that there. So he moved it, and he called 3 times into the cave. And when the third call, all the animals come rushing out, and they all scattered, and he was trying to call them to see if they would come, and they wouldn't no more. That was the day when the animals became wild. They wouldn't come to the humans anymore, and this really upset the holder of the skies. So he went back home, he called out his brother, and they began to fight. But this time it was really serious. They were throwing things at each other, they were using weapons. It was bad. And the holder of the skies, he found this deer antler, and he had his brother, the mischievous one, down on the ground, and he raised it up, and he was going to kill his brother with it. And the grandmother, she caught up to them, and she made them stop. And the holder of the skies, he believed that he won the fight. So in return, he became kind of like the ruler or the master, and he made the rules. So he put in place that the mischievous one would cause too much trouble if he were to stay on Earth, but also he'd be too much trouble if he went back to Skyworld. So what they did was, there's a sky road that goes from Earth back up to Skyworld, but he lives in between worlds. He has his own cabin up there, and they separated business hours. So the holder of the skies, he takes care of the day, and the mischievous one takes care of the night. And he can't see very well, so that's why he couldn't get into as much trouble. That's why he takes care of the night. And their intentions were to have humans walk the earth. So, and the only way to go back to Skyworld is when you become a spirit being. And the mischievous one, he could only entice those people to come in to his cabin and visit, but that's all he could do. So that's how that works. Not too long after that, the grandmother passed away, and to honor her, they put her up into the sky, and they made her the moon, and they put her right across from the mischievous one's house, the cabin, so that she would provide some light for him so he could see what he was doing, but also so that when he did go to take care of the night, she would see him for who he really is. And that's why we have that term, Grandmother Moon. So the holder of the skies, he's walking amongst the earth, and he's looking at all of creation and making sure everything's good and making sure he's happy with everything before he makes humans. And he noticed as he was walking that there was some life that barely had any life in them, and he was wondering, he was wondering why that is. So he keeps walking west, and he comes across this huge, we'll call him this huge fellow, and we know him as Hadui. And he asked this Hadui, he said, "Where do you come from? I haven't seen you before." And Hadui says, "Oh, I live in the mountains and I made all of this." This Hadui is really scary and boastful and kind of aggressive. So the holder of the skies says, "No, I created all of this." So they're both debating who made everything on earth. So Hadui challenged him to a mountain moving contest, and so the holder of the skies turns around, and Hadui says, "I will move that mountain and it will be behind you." So he shook his turtle rattle, he banged his elm stick, and the earth shook a little as the mountain did move, but it didn't move very far. So the holder of the skies, he realized that this Hadui is powerful, but it was his turn now. So the holder of the skies moved the mountain so fast it was right behind Hadui, and when he went to turn around, he banged his face off of the cliff or the mountain, and that's why his nose is crooked and his mouth is twisted, and his face changed colors from the pain. So the holder of the skies won the mountain moving contest, and Hadui wanted to know what his fate was. He didn't want to leave the earth, but the holder of the skies was saying, "Well, if people were to look at you, they wouldn't be the same, because he intends to have human beings walk this earth. So he doesn't really think it's a good idea for him to stay." So Hadui, he offers his help for the human beings, and the holder of the skies asks, "Well, how can you help them if they can't see you?" And Hadui says, "Well, they will carve my face from a specific tree, and you will show them my mannerisms, how I walk and how I talk, and they will feed me tobacco and corn mush with maple syrup, because that's what I crave, and in return I will help them, and I'll help them with their aches and pains, whether it's in their mind or in their body, or any great disease or bad weather, like strong winds, I will help them with all that as long as they feed me. And they need to give me their name and have a fire going, and that's where they burn their tobacco. And I will refer to them as my grandchildren, and I will take care of them. I will be their great defender. So the holder of the skies, he agrees to this. He grants Hedui stay. So that's why even today we still have the Medicine Society, and that's why they wear the masks. And as you can see from the exhibit, there is no actual masks, but there's carvings of the mask in a tree. So anyway, the holder of the skies, he decides to make the human beings, and so he uses the earth because his grandmother taught him that his mother is in the earth, she is the earth. So if he's ever missing her, she's right there. So he uses earth, and he uses lake water to form these clay-like dolls, and they're the red dolls. And what he done was he made a male and a female, and his brother, the mischievous one, he sees him making these dolls, so he comes down and he asks if he can help make some too. And his brother agrees. He says, yeah, sure, yeah, come, just find some natural resources. That's all I'm using to make these dolls. So the mischievous one builds this huge fire and lets it burn down, and he gathers all of the ashes. And as he's doing that, the holder of the skies, he is making another set of dolls. He uses earth and seawater, and they are the yellow dolls. And so the mischievous one, he has all his supplies, and so the mischievous one and his brother, the holder of the skies, they're gonna make dolls together. And so the mischievous one is using ashes and earth for his dolls, and the holder of the skies is using earth and air for his dolls. So the one that the holder of the skies is making are the black dolls, and the mischievous one, he's making the white dolls. And what the holder of the skies tells his brother to do is we need to breathe into them 3 times, and that is how they will come to life. So they both pick up their dolls. The holder of the skies picks up the red dolls first, his first pair of dolls he made, and the mischievous one has his dolls. And so they both breathe into them 3 times, and the red dolls, they start to wiggle and squirm around and blink, and they come to life, and he puts them down and he lets them play. And he does the next dolls, the yellow dolls, he picks them up and breathes into them 3 times, and they go off and play. And the mischievous one, he's getting really frustrated because his dolls are coming to life. He keeps trying, but it's not working for him. And so the holder of the skies, he picks up the black dolls and he breathes into them 3 times, and everything's fine. He lets them go play as well. And by this point, the mischievous one is just really upset, and he doesn't want to do it anymore, and he said it's not working for him. So he just left them there. And then his brother asked, well, can I try? And the mischievous one says, yeah, go ahead, you can have them. And he goes back up to his cabin in the sky. So the holder of the skies, he picks up the white dolls and he breathes into them 3 times, and they come to life. So they're all playing together, and Instead of the holder of the skies, this is when he becomes the creator, because he's created everything he ever intended to have on this earth. So he teaches these dolls the ways, like the original ways. He teaches them how to live in this world and how to take care of it and what resources there are. And he told them to pay attention to these teachings because he was only going to share them once. And because he decided to go back to Skyworld. And so it was their responsibility now to take care of the earth and everything on the earth. So he taught them all the ways, and obviously some of them only heard what they wanted to hear or heard it differently, because once he was back in the sky, they were living in harmony at first, but some of them didn't agree on things, so they began to fight, and they began to disagree, and Creator saw this, so he actually came back down, and what he done was he split them up. He put each colored doll in each 4 directions of the earth, because they weren't getting along. When he gave them those original teachings, he was standing on a stone. He was standing on this stone, and that's when he gave them the original instructions. And that's where the Oneida people get their name from. Oneotaaga, the people of the standing stone. So that's where that comes from. And the teachings that he gave them was that each color was responsible for a certain element, and the red people were responsible for the earth and the land, and the yellow people were responsible for the waters, and the black people were responsible for the air. The white race is responsible for fire, taking care of the fire that all of the races would gather around to keep warm and for protection and cooking and all those things. So when he separated the 4 races, the Creator did tell them that they would all reunite again one day back in the homeland, which is where the red race has stayed. But he also warned that his brother, the mischievous one, would come and try to bring them together before they matured, because that was the goal, was that they were split up and that they had to mature on a mental and spiritual level before coming together again. The people begin to fight again, even though they're split up. They begin to fight, and really odd occurrences are happening, and so the Creator formed a rainbow, and what that rainbow represented was that he was still using his power for their benefit. But there was also a prophecy that came with that rainbow, and it said that when that rainbow stretches from east to west, and if the thunders were to come from the east, that life would end. And life didn't completely end, but the Creator did wash away some life, and he began to renew the earth again. And that was when he gave them some new ceremonies, and it was the strawberry ceremony and the maple sap ceremony. And it was to teach them to be thankful, to have peace and love in their hearts, and to honor the medicine plants and healing properties of those plants. The creator's brother, the mischievous one, he had a really strong influence on the people at this point, and a lot of jealousy, greed, murders, those kind of things are happening among the people. And the creator, he kept trying to help them, but there was just so much chaos and destruction within the plant and animal life as well. And the disease is one of the main things that roamed the earth at this time. So this is when Creator decided to give them herbal medicines, and he told them that there would only be a few people that would know how to pick them, where to go, and what they look like and what they are used for. So it was really important to remember the teachings behind those plants. Also, around this time, the foods were very scarce. So the Creator sent a messenger to bring them domesticated food and seeds for them to plant, and because the foods were no longer wild or abundant, well, there were still wild foods, but they were no longer abundant. So that's why he gifted them domesticated seeds. It was just that they had to work harder for their food now. And this was also when the Creator gave them the harvest and planting ceremonies. And he gave them many other ceremonies as well. And unfortunately, there is more to the story, but that's all there's time for. So, if you don't go for listening, thank you.